Hi everyone, I'm Airier, and today we're going to be checking out Star Wars vs. Warhammer 40k Episode 12, A Storm of Sabers by a fan with too much time. Now, last time around, the pieces are set, the Jedi are on the ground, the Imperial army is reacting to stormtroopers, clone troopers, having really effective armor because it can literally say, nope, doesn't touch you. I mean, then it does after that on the second shot, but still the first shot is negated, which I still think is amazing. And we have all the different pieces coming together, and I've been hearing that there's a lot more pieces still to hit, so I want to see what happens. I'm really excited about this. So we'll jump right in. If you haven't already, there's a link below to the original video. Hit it up. And if you haven't, leave a like and subscribe. Right now, I really want to do this because I've been spending all day watching Wizards of the Coast and D&D self-destruct faster than Elon Musk on a hot mic. So yeah, I kind of want to just do something that's fun. And this is fun. Let's get started. Oh. I don't see enough of this, but I don't recognize this one. It's probably the Star Wars side, but I don't know what this is. The source material is completely foreign to me. This has to be some kind of like Jedi thing. Oh, the character looks familiar. I don't know which one this is. Sorry. Yeah, it's definitely Star Wars, the floating orbs. Okay, yeah. Oh, the music dropped. I have no idea what that is and how the lightsaber remains on despite no one holding it. I guess the auto-off feature is a newer invention. Oh, is this from like the prehistory, like pre-Raven during like the High Jedi Order? I don't know anything about that time frame other than Disney's trying to do something with it. Oh, just getting him right in the elbow. Oh, it's a cover of Warriors. Okay, that makes sense. Dude. Is that a Jedi actually just overpowering? Oh. Okay, never mind. I think I recognize this. It's been so long, though I barely even remember these characters. Oddly enough, I've never actually played this game, but I know of it. Yeah, I've seen clips of this game. I don't know what this game is, and it bugs me because it looks cool. I've seen this in a lot of other content covering Star Wars. I don't know what it is. I'm sorry, this is one of those things that I'm actually very annoyed about because I want to know what this game is, and for some reason, every time someone's written it down, the last time I asked in a different video, completely forgot. Also forgot which video I asked on, so I don't know where to go back to find it. Yeah, I would like to geek out over this game by playing it. And if someone tells me it's just a fan animation, I'm just going to sit here going, I wish I had known that because I would have gone watch it. Sorry, I like geeky things. This is really cool. Ooh. I've only seen them trying to kill each other later. Ooh. Okay, now her I recognize. I'm pretty sure she's Knights of the Old Republic 2? Could be mistaken. Ooh. Gold sabers. All goldy. Don't know what this is from now. Like, some of these I've seen, others I haven't, and this looks like a different animation style. Way more shiny. Also, punching. That's apparently a thing now. I mean, I'm not complaining, but, huh. Wait. The source material for this video is absolutely batshit insane. She just took out multiple lightsaber wielders with her fists, and then she pulled up the lightsaber again. Damn. Fan, I have no idea where you got this, and I want to know, because this is really freaking cool. Oh, using lightning to start a fire. Neat. Was this from, like, one of the canceled games? Ooh. Okay, again, this one I recognize again. Back to Knights of the Old Republic. The style is very different. Still really good choreography, but... Dude. I know I shouldn't comment on it, but every time I see this, and I've seen this clip used multiple places, just the clones over here, or I guess the troopers at the time over here. They do look like clones, now I think about it, yeah. Even though I know it would be not clones, because this is well before. just like there's a guy with a lightsaber fighting a Jedi over here, and you're like, yeah, cool. I'm going to ignore him and shoot the guy off in the distance rather than the guy with the lightsaber who's literally going to kill me by accident, maybe. Yeah, just one of those weird choices cinematography-wise. Not exactly about this video, just, yeah, that's a thing. It's a weird thing. Tree to face. Usually very effective. I mean, didn't do anything here, but that's just a detail. At least I think this is Knights of the Old Republic. If someone tells me it's not, I mean, I could easily be wrong. Boom. Episode, I know it says 12, but this is an absolutely terrible font. I love it down here because it's very reminiscent of Star Wars. I hate it up here because it's like the reminiscent of Star Wars, but they upgraded the inner glow and then the outer glow. And then they put a bolding on it, which honestly, the bolding is rather nice. But they just need to turn down the outer glow so you can actually get differentiation between the letters. It's not so bad here. You can kind of get it. And then over here, no. I only know this because I've played around with sites that do this. And I suck at it. I hate making words. It's a bitch. But I have no idea what this was unless I had already known what the 12 was. Storm of Sabers is a nice font choice, though. Simplistic, very good. Ooh, I'd like to draw out.
Anakin crept along the alleyway, hood drawn up around his face, obscuring his features. It was frigid, almost cold enough to snow, which meant that it was the most miserable temperature possible for the weather he was in. Frigid, oily drops pattered against his slick robe and an inconsistent drizzle. Well,
that was more temperate.
Weather was the wrong term. After all, it was hardly rain that he was being coated in. Looking up, tens, maybe hundreds of massive graded platforms faced skyward, and an equal amount lingered below him, visible through the holes in the graded platform he himself stood on.
Ooh.
Buildings had been fitted onto these grates, each one rising to a variable height, all the way up to the next grate, with some connecting to the buildings above or below them. Each grate contained a small city in its own right, and people moved, worked, and lived on each segment as naturally as anyone might on the lower levels of Coruscant. Crowds of dirty void dwellers roamed down the broad avenues, walking on foot or conveyed on some vehicle. Priests in red robes, their bodies disfigured with rough, pervasive augmentations, wore large floating harnesses and rings.
Okay, that's what's happening. Okay, I was kind of confused on what he was describing, because it almost sounded like he was on a different city or on a different planet. Because I thought he was on the Anax invasion. I thought he was on this invasion with everyone else. Yeah, because he's on a planet with what looks like Martian tech priests, or I guess just tech priests. They could not be from Mars, they're from somewhere else. Technically from wherever they were evacuating, but details. I don't know why I call everyone from the Mechanicus Mars. It's a problem. I do it. I know I'm wrong. I do it anyways. But how did he get in so stealthily? Just because I didn't realize Anakin could do stealth. I know it's a meme and a joke, but okay, I wasn't expecting that. Anakin being stealthy. Could he? Sure. Had they done it before? Sure. Does it usually last this long? Maybe in Clone Wars he got really good at it. I'm a little surprised.
Levitating above the crowds, performing various tasks of maintenance on the varied systems of the ship. The entire area smelled like stale air and human bodies.
Oh, he's on the actual invasion cruiser.
And Anakin did not want to hazard a guess as to just what was composing the inconsistent but ever-present drizzle which coated him more and more with...
Oh, it's probably actual oil falling from the ship.
The Jedi looked around, checking to make sure the coast was relatively clear before waving his men
just
forward.
Just looked depressed and not where are you going.
Wrecker, Crosshair, Tech, Hunter, and R2.
Wait,
Moving
R2?
with such a small team had
astromech
allowed them to evade the security forces sent to their boarding craft.
They brought an astromech droid. They brought a droid. I don't know if that's going to become important. I mean, other than R2 being useful, because it's R2. Hopefully he has plot armor, because seeing a dead R2 would kind of hurt. Like, even more than seeing Anakin die, seeing R2 die would just hurt. It's weird now I think about it. But I hope something comes up where someone in a specific red robe sees a literal AI rolling around. Oh, that would be so horrible. I love it.
and with little effort, they had moved deep enough into the ship to reach this populated area. The clones and droid rushed across the smaller street which separated
R2
them,
can rush?
coming into Anakin's alley and hefting weapons, each cloaked as well. "This is a warship?" Hunter asked as he
details.
came up beside Anakin. The Jedi nodded. "Yeah, one of their smaller ones," he added, peeking around a corner into the main
Small is relative.
"No kiddin'?" Hunter asked, kneeling down and tapping the grated floor. "From what I can tell, there's at least 30,000 people living in here."
Okay, this is something I absolutely just need to say. Early on, many episodes ago, probably a couple months now, I think about, when they had the Admiral from the other fleet talking about her movement through it and everyone reacting to her and just seeing how she was looking at the inside of an Imperial ship. I like that. I like that bit of it. And now we're seeing the exact same, not the same setup. We're looking at different things, but we're looking at it from the Star Wars side on what they perceive of an Imperial ship on the inside, and a small one at that. And I just love how he's focusing on how everyone is interacting like there's a city in there. And that fits because in 40K, ships are very much cities. They're entire countries if they're big enough, because they get freaking huge. And there's honestly some very small countries. So it works. And I love seeing that from someone's perspective who has no idea what's going on. And he gets the right gist of it, that it's basically a nation unto itself, where individual platforms, well, I love the description of platforms built within there, becoming their own cities, and then having them become just its own breathing ecosystem that's more akin to cities and interconnected nations and transport than it is with any specific ship, which just seems like it's not the same thing. A ship in 40K and a ship in Star Wars are very different in what they think the purpose is. And I love that he's coming to that realization immediately, seeing it and thinking, this isn't a ship, this is a city with some kind of effed up weather. I just like seeing that differentiation of the same type of scene being described from a very different type of view and focusing on something very different about it. For Anakin, it's the structure of it is surprising because he hasn't dealt with the people. For the Admiral, it was the interactions of the people, and the structure was just how it was embedded. And I just like that because it's the same material described differently. That is hard because a lot of the times what happens is there's a trap authors fall into. Good authors, bad authors. A lot of good authors fall into this because it's just an easy one. When you have the same item being described, you describe it once, and then you paraphrase yourself with different words from a different perspective. You don't rewrite that description in a different way to focus on different things. You just say, oh, this is a very bright town. If someone comes else and it was like, there was a lot of light in that city. It's the same description with just a few words changed out. That's what normally happens. This is just different focus of the same type of thing. Not the same location, of course, but the same type of ship structure. And he's getting the right idea about it, that it's massive, that it is an ecosystem in its own right. That's cool. Sorry, just English major writing nerd. You know, you get a master's in fiction and these kind of things just geek you out and become way too interesting.
"Maybe more," he said with a sniff. "They drag all these people to war? What happens if the ship gets attacked or blown up?"
They die?
asked Wrecker.
Hell, they die even if they don't
No
get
one answered
attacked
verbally,
or blown up.
but Crosshair hefted his sniper rifle and drew his finger across his own throat, pairing the act with a choking sound. Wrecker's eyes widened. "Whoa, wow, that's pretty hardcore," Wrecker said. "Wrecker, rein it in, stay focused," said
dude.
Hunter. The huge clone smirked and nodded. "We need to pick up the pace, Hunter. Ahsoka and Rex are fighting next door, and I'm sure they are drawing most of the attention. We need to break into the bridge and make sure they have no way to access the bomb on an axis, with Trench's ship or not," Anakin said. Hunter stood, shaking his head. "I know, sir, but this place is vast and not built very intuitively. Halls are blocked, lifts are broken. I was hoping that by heading towards a larger, empty space, navigation would become clearer, but..."
This is something I absolutely love. The same way that Anakin's initial impression, this is more just serving the plot of saying why they are not already at their destination because it's confusing. But I like how when they describe the ship for the Imperium, it is confusing because for the Imperium, that's not confusing. That's just how a ship is. You're not supposed to understand the mysteries of the Omnissiah's will. But from everyone else, it's like, what the F is going on here? This is a nightmare. And I like that that's an actual thing they're bringing up. This isn't so much about the previous narrative difficulties or, well, the fact that they're getting over it here. I just like this because it's accurately accurately reflecting, there's the word, the Imperium design philosophy of, fuck it. It works. And if it doesn't, it was a feature. The moment you realize the Imperial design philosophy is literally the same as Bethesda's. I hate that I even thought of that. Moving on.
But that's not the case. He trailed off,
geez.
seeming to hear something before snapping around and aiming his blaster at the far end of the alley. Standing there was a hunched man, or was he a machine? Both,
Servitor?
and fully a monster besides. He
Or
was mauled
tech
by
priest.
metallic augmentations all over his body, head, neck, everywhere. His flesh was a tortured red mass of metal and unwilling skin and muscle. Both eyes gone, replaced with large red lenses that had been shoved into the eye sockets.
Probably a tech
sockets which
priest.
still wept dirty pink tears which dripped from its chin.
Ugh.
All weapons snapped up to face it, and R2 whirred and moved behind Anakin.
All praise be his.
The man-machine said as it staggered into the alley. It had a large, hunched back, and its arms were both replaced, the right with a large claw, and the left with a club-like protuberance of stained metal. Flies buzzed about its stinking, nearly rotting form, covered only...
Okay, definitely not a tech priest. I don't think they would deal with rotting skin having infestations of flies. So it's probably a servitor that's given the option to talk. Or are we getting some chaosy here? Probably not yet.
only by filthy rags and sheets of long, thin paper which hung from red wax seals, each thickly coated in the scrolled religious texts of the Dia. It moved forward steadily, but slowly.
Wait, the religious texts of what? Oh, the Dia, pious Dia, which is what they think they are. Okay, they're not actually identifying. They're identifying it as what they think it is. Okay, that makes more sense.
Of the Dia. It moved forward steadily, but slowly, appearing to have no other speed. Should we? Crosshair asked, looking towards Hunter, but it was Anakin
Just
who
a
answered.
straight-up servitor, man.
No, wait. Don't shoot it.
God, the art they chose. It's the head.
No hostility, he whispered.
Doesn't know they're there.
No awareness at all.
Best way to describe a servitor.
All the while, the thing continued to lurch forward, moving towards them, metal feet thumping down one after the other as it neared them. Closer and closer and closer it came.
Be here in his.
Okay. One, props to you, fan, for recording what actually sounds like tortured vocal cords. But also, this is very difficult to listen to. It sounds like someone's about to spring a leak, and I didn't even know you could do that and sound biological, which it isn't, but it also is. You got that voice right. Damn you for doing that. I wish you hadn't.
It said. It's getting...
Wait, it actually had... Be pure in his... Oh, that's what that was? I thought that was just groaning. Neat.
It said. It's getting kind of close, Wrecker said, still aiming
Just
at the
walk
thing.
out of the way. It
You
might not
shoot
even
that
notice you're there.
thing, and it
Or
will
care.
give us away. Just move. Nice and slow. Anakin said back. It got closer and closer, moving directly towards Crosshair, the closest one. But Crosshair did not move. He only raised and sighted his rifle, mechanical legs squeaking slightly as he adjusted his stance.
Oh.
Must be expunged.
Ooh. Now that was a cool effect there. Before it sounded very biological. Now it had that very much auto-tuning feature at the end. Good choice. Also, I heard must be expunged normally with my ears. And I think I caught filth, but honestly, if I didn't have the subtitles, and also, yeah, they're there. That would be very difficult.
It droned, now almost in Crosshair's
Is
face.
it going to clean?
Crosshair, move. Hunter ordered, his voice low and strained. It stepped almost into the raised barrel of Crosshair's rifle, raising one augmented arm, the claw there opening sluggishly. Crosshair smoothly but slowly moved to the left of the thing as it reached forward, his barrel hovering inches from its face and head. Its claws reached into a fitted slot into the wall behind Crosshair, and out slid a stinking refuse container. Its other arm reached in, the club-like head of its limb revealed to be a powerful suction device, which it used to slurp up the partial sewage.
I just realized what they're describing. They're encountering the Imperial version of a servitor Roomba. Ah, yes, the Roomba servitor, the most dignified of jobs. Watch it bump into the same chair like 8 times.
Its hunchback inflated, getting larger and larger until it stopped. A flame flicking to life at the end of the same arm that had been used for the draining. It billowed out a flame into the container,
It sucks it up and
sterilizing
burns away the
before
rest.
sliding it back into the wall.
Oh.
And it's praying as it goes. Oh, is that a face? Oh.
His
Name.
ah.
Yeah, so the servitor, yeah, Roomba, it's praying as it goes, but Fan, where did you find this? That is grotesque. I mean, it's impressive, but oh, wow. It looks 40K-esque, but at the same time, it almost, I don't know what WAB or MMVII is. 2028? 2008? I don't know what Roman numerals are for this. I could be very off. God, that is hard to look at. Where did you even get that?
It moaned as it turned away from the wall.
All tasks in his name are worthy. Yeah, I get the moaning. It's really disturbing as hell, but I would not have got that without the subtitles.
And began to walk to the next alley.
It makes it actually much
and the
less
next
terrifying when you
container.
can read it.
They all watched after it, even remaining silent and vigilant as it opened the wall canister in the next alley over from theirs, doing the same, its hump swelling and stinking even more grotesquely. Was that supposed to be a person? Tech asked.
Was.
Anakin, paler now than he had been before,
At one point.
shook his head. That used to be a person.
Not
I
anymore.
have no idea what it is now, he said. R2-D2 beeped in word, and Anakin nodded. What'd he say? Asked
Roomba.
Wrecker. A droid, said the Jedi.
Huh?
Asked the clone. R2 says that it, whatever it was, it's now a droid.
Yeah, that's
Maybe
basically what a
less,
servitor is.
Anakin clarified.
Biological software droid.
This place is a horror show.
Yeah!
Crosshair
Yeah, that's
said,
accurate.
not sounding nearly as displeased as his words would imply. Then let's bring the curtains
Oh,
down, said Hunter.
that's kinda effed up.
General, we can't rely on my spatial awareness alone if we're going to navigate up to the bridge in time to aid Captain Rex. We need a guide, willing or not.
They're still working under the assumption that they're not going to be there first. I mean, if they don't have a guy, they might not get there at all, but also, yeah, the other team is in their own little bit of trouble here. The fact that Crosshair, though, is like, this place is a horror show. That is a really interesting way to describe it. Someone who's just okay with absolute, well, the Imperium aspect of it. I wonder if that'll play in later to future characterization. Just in a willingness to embrace the more effed up side of the Imperium somehow. I don't think so, because I don't know how far this story progresses, but I want to find out what happens.
Anakin nodded, rubbing his chin before suddenly smiling. Okay, I've got an idea.
Meanwhile, on the ranch, on board Hell Smasher. I forgot it was called that. Sorry, the Hell Smasher. Yep. Still waiting. Ooh, music is changing out.
Freaking kill him! Shoot it! Shoot it!
What?
Screeched the augmented warrior. Half his face was cast in rigid metal, iron teeth exposed, red lenses filling the metal socket of the skull-like side of his head.
Ooh.
But the other half was all too human, scowling and paling in a volatile combination of uncompromising fury and existential fear.
Oh. Oh, that's cool. I just love the descriptions of some of the more effed up physical augmentations here. You see it every now and again in the models, and you get it a lot more in the lore of like, your face is gonna fall off. Let's give you some metal shit. Oh man, I just love this.
Before him, 2 men of lesser rank aimed their massive slug throwers, their multiple barrels whining as they began to spin like primitive imitations of proper rotary blasters. Obi-Wan's speed increased, leaving them only a second or two left when their weapons actually started firing. The Jedi Master narrowed his eyes as he saw the shots coming fast, very fast, and...
Okay, this is more just a personal thing. Not so much this. It's nice we're getting the Obi-Wan section. But what model range is this guy from? I mean, it's obviously I was going to say Star Wars 40K because I see the Imperial there, but I don't recognize this armor for a non-Space Marine because it's a machine gun. It looks cool, but I don't recognize anyone who has the little beret on the side and the armor that's plated. It's like, this is Forge World, isn't it? This is probably Forge World from the Imperial Army itself. Yeah, that would be my guess. Really damn cool looking.
Not blockable. He answered them by running to the left, narrowly avoiding the twin streams of fire as he sped towards them up the cylindrical hall. The 2 gunners were nothing if not persistent, gritting their teeth as they moved their weapons to chase, lines of fire dragging after Obi-Wan, forcing him further and further left, sandwiching him between the wall and the closing hail of bullet-borne death that was pursuing. In response to this, the Jedi merely ran up the wall, prompting shouts of rage from the men as their guns swept up after him, but simply could not track the Master unaided. They had less than a second to finish their exclamations of dismay, the heads of the 2 gunners flying clean as he sped by them, stride unbroken. Their superior hefted a scattergun and fired it, grinning madly, fully willing to be bisected by Obi-Wan's saber if it meant slaying him in the process.
Yeah,
the
that's
Jedi
Sergeant.
did not feel the same, and leapt over the man, avoiding the shredding sheets of fire and the officer entirely as he continued to run. The Imperial roared with rage and spun on his heel to discharge his weapon into Obi-Wan's back. He was cut short quite literally as the 47 Jedi following in the Master's wake swept by, dicing the man into pieces before he could squeeze the trigger.
Okay, so this is where the main force is. Obi-Wan is leading 47 Jedi. I thought they were splitting up and doing their own thing. No, they're clumped together as a giant death ball? Oh, I'm sorry. I was not expecting them to actually remain as a cohesive force. And this actually makes it sound cooler to me. Also, just realized that Obi-Wan literally just did a distraction Carnifex move where it's like, I'm the person you should stare at, followed by the actual dangerous thing behind it. Yeah, hey, if it works, it works.
They had met the organized defenders of the ship soon after boarding. The Imperials were determined,
47 force
well-trained,
pushes at the same time,
vicious,
look like.
and ready. But none of that saved them, or even slowed the Jedi down. The Order was unleashed, and just as Obi-Wan was doing now, so too were the many other groups of Jedi that were loose on the ship, doing damage wherever they could, seeking to disable or destroy the vessel.
So they're all on the ship as well.
The power of their assault was utterly overwhelming, and the defenders could not stop them. In his mind, Obi-Wan could hear them, the other Jedi, all...
Oh, now this is interesting. I wasn't sure where the mass Jedi Force was. I honestly thought they were going to get a beachhead on the ground. But I guess no, we're on the ship's Helm Smasher. I guess that would be it. The Helm Smasher. I thought it was a location and just fancily named. So was that one of the ships? Honestly, I forgot the ship names already. But yeah, I guess all 47 Jedi went straight onto the ship itself. And then Ahsoka and Anakin broke off into their own. And then they're the rest of the main force. Yeah, 47 Jedi would make a good main force.
Communicating to each other telepathically, reporting, updating, informing, calling for help.
What?
Someone's in trouble, Obi-Wan said out
Jedi
loud.
can communicate telepathically intentionally? I mean, I guess it makes sense. It happens in the movies. Haven't seen that abused as much as it should be.
I sense it as well,
Oh.
said Master Malicos, his robed form skipping along the corridor just 2 steps behind Obi-Wan, so close the Elder Master could almost physically hear him. It's Master Unduli, he said after a moment more.
Why can I not hear her?
Asked Jedi Knight Olgant. Something is blocking us from her, but I sense that she is calling. that she is in distress, said Master Malikos. Let us go. We are the nearest.
Are we about to get... I don't want to say it in case I jinx it. But I think we're heading towards 47 Jedi versus Space Marine Librarian. Oh, I want this. I want this so much.
Said Master Obi-Wan Kenobi, veering left as the next intersection of claustrophobic halls came into view.
Claustrophobic?
No! Roared another one of the Imperial officers.
What?
They had been waiting for them, lined up this time,
Okay, that makes
4
sense.
men in front and 1 officer behind. The 4 men were holding large, glowing weapons.
Ooh, plasma
one
weaponry.
massive
They
in
can
their
flip that with
arms as
lightsaber.
they hefted,
Yeah, probably find out.
aimed, and fired. The globular bolts of plasma filled every space in the hallway, melting the corridor just by their passage. They moved blindingly fast.
Wait, globular? Oh yeah, because plasma in 40K is treated as a glob of almost like ooze that you fire and it has high energy. Which is weird because for some reason I was thinking of actual plasma, which is more like a high energy gas and not a physical matter. Sorry, this is just one of those getting reality confused with the fiction universe for a second. And in this case, the reality is not the fiction. So yeah, sorry, just threw me off there because it's a weird description for something. It was like, but plasma, oh, 40K plasma, not real life plasma. Very different, very different.
Fast, but the Jedi had begun acting even before the shots themselves had been
Precognition's a
fired.
bitch.
They halted, landing wherever they could, lightsabers hung, hands extended out. The masters and their knights
Can they throw it back?
focused, reaching out with their wills in a wave of force which collided with the superheated plasma. The powerful weaponized bolts smashed into the invisible wall, splattering before rolling backward on a wave of cooling but still superheated plasma, melting the still glowing corridor a second time as the men screamed. Some turning to run, forced to carry their heavy guns, the power packs on their backs which connected to the weapons, leaving them little choice. The officer screamed his fury, unloading his scattergun into the rolling wave twice before being destroyed
He was shooting
by it. None of them survived the counterattack, and soon the Jedi were jumping from the edge.
I just realized what they were doing functionally. They literally caught the bolt, spread it out across the wave of force, and then hit them with a wave of force coated in, well, 40K plasma. That is horrifying. And I'm talking about something that has 40K in it, and the Jedi just did something even more effed up than normal. Oh, dude, that's insane. I love that description. This is so cool. Also, just one of those little things I want to point out writing-wise. What they just did, what Fan just did here, when it comes to that description of showing the wall of force, catching it and moving it, it's describing how the plasma is cooling but still destructive. All of this, and then showing how people, well, the sergeant specifically, is running into it being destroyed. That is cool, because he could have easily said they caught it and pushed it back to catch the enemies. And that works. That's perfectly acceptable as a sentence. But it doesn't have the same visceral nature to it to just give you that idea of here's the forces being used by the actual force. And then it's interacting with this to create something even more terrifying in its application. This is an example of taking writing from one level to the next, and it just sounds better. It sounds much more gripping this way. This is good.
Edges of their charred bones, booted and sandaled feet only touching the smoking remains and molten metal of the hallway for less than milliseconds as they rushed through. And so it was that things continued, with ambushes and choke points being quickly overcome by the precognitive assault of the Jedi Order and its lethal divisions.
Yeah.
Where bullets were used, the Jedi dodged and danced around them, the Masters leading the way. Where plasma was used, the Force was deployed, creating walls which could not be burnt or expended by superheated energy. Where lasfire was used, the Jedi would rip the plates and panels away from the ship around them, sending them forward in a lethal storm of spinning metal, which would both shield the advancing knights and force their opponents into cover until the very instant they were upon them.
And here's just another really good, useful technique. What they did here, specifically the previous one that I talked about, how it was so built up, we got an idea of what a battle looked like. And instead of belaboring the story by writing every single interaction throughout the entire ship, we have one hard specific instance and then a summary of extenuating instances on top of that. So we have the one encounter with an ambush. We have a bit of the tail end of one as well, technically. And we have that. And then we move on to a summary to make it go by faster. One of the things a lot of authors, some who are actually very good and decide to do it this way, will give you a play-by-play of every single second, which is fine when it's a very dynamic environment that things are changing constantly. But when you have a lot of repetition, such as you're taking travel time outside, or you're doing something where a lot of events are very similar, it's the difference between playing a video game where you have one boss and then an end boss and there are a bunch of little NPCs in the middle that you have to get through, or how every single thing you have to see on a screen of that exact same process from a video game. I'm probably losing the metaphor here, but basically, we are not being overwhelmed by extra details. We're just getting the massive info dump, with not really an info dump, a massive section showing us how this is going and then summarizing it so we can move quickly towards the next event. That's good because, again, a lot of people don't. They think, I had to write this, so I'm going to describe how they see and how they feel about every little thing, and then they start repeating themselves endlessly to the point where it's like, I saw another person who looked like they had implants, and it disgusted me. And you just keep doing something of that, just rephrasing it over and over again. It's good to see someone just getting in there, showing it, and then telling what you need to move through it. That's good technique, and it's just... I'm mostly pointing it out because it is something that frustrates me to no end when people fail to do this, and they just go into obscene amounts of detail on information they've already talked about. It's similar to what I'd mentioned previously, when you had two different people talking about the same thing. It was different. It was very different to the point where they were actual unique takes on the same item. And what happens here is you're not taking the same technique on the same types of events. You're taking that one technique and just brushing through it with a good bit of detail to show the movement of time instead of just taking a hard cut to the next event as well. That's just a good progression of events and narrative, so you don't go into too much detail and then bog down the story.
Master Windu and his combat force had gone to a place called the Choir to neutralize their communications, and Obi-Wan and the others had lost direct contact with him, though they trusted
Choir would have some
force
awareness or psychic awareness there, probably.
Luminara, however, seemed to be broadcasting distress, like a scream being issued from a mouth submerged by water. The closer they drew, the louder it became.
Oh, is she fighting a Null?
Finally, they found themselves near the top of the massive vessel. A long line of carnage stretched out behind them. They had not lost a single knight, not one on their way here. They had all been warned that holding back against this foe would mean certain failure.
Good.
And a surprisingly large amount of the Order had taken this to heart. The horrors occurring on Axum had also been...
Okay, this is just more of a personal question. How many Jedi were there at this time period? I never really pay attention to how many, and it always looked like there was a lot. But if 47 is a significant amount of the Order, there weren't that many Jedi. Honestly, I thought there were more. Like, I literally thought there might be thousands, and it was a big thing to kill them down. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised there maybe just hundreds. If a significant percentage, I would say maybe a fifth, maybe more than that. It's probably less than 1,000 Jedi total. Kind of surprising Palpatine had such a hard time getting rid of them.
Been shared,
Granted,
and they had become
Palpatine
a potent
has his way,
source
he wants to do it that way.
of passionate rage within the Knights and Masters of the Jedi. A rage they now vented in faux serenity, faces placid as they slaughtered their way through the armsmen of the ship.
Which does
Even
actually
now,
really
they found
cool.
themselves in some sort of bizarre collection of orreries, a confusing hive of domes of various sizes connected by a maze of corridors.
Ooh.
She was within one of these chambers, but it was unclear which. But the sound of her distress had become truly alarming.
Is it real or a trap,
They entered
though?
another orrery, the dome above them made of transparent material, and framed in stained glass which depicted different equations and constellations across the breadth of the ceiling.
Ooh.
The stars and a portion of Axum's sphere shone in from there, illuminating the hundreds of soldiers present before them. Soldiers the Jedi had already sensed long before entering the room. The knights activated their sabers and got to work, moving like wraiths, each swing lopping away limbs and heads, the cries of the wounded only lasting so long before silence returned to the starlit room. This was overkill. Said
Oh, no. I mean, yes, it's overkill now. But as soon as they come up against any librarian or any dedicated force with accurate amounts of explosives, it's not going to be overkill anymore. Although the force is a very big neutralizer if they can, use it correctly. And it sounds like they are using it correctly. The best way to get rid of a force user is to make sure they don't know they have to get into any type of defensive stance. And they're very much on guard. There's something about saying it's overkill that just sounds like he's jinxing it. It sounds like this is now about to become an absolute cluster because something's going to happen. Narratively, it's like saying, I guess we're all right here, or I can take them. Something is going to happen. And I'm looking forward to it.
Said Master Drelig, deactivating his lightsaber as he spoke. His voice filled
death
with
flags
bitter
are being waved.
sentiments. Deploying the full might of the Order like this is cruel.
Yes,
Said,
be cruel. It's how you
voicing the words
survive.
as he would a hard fact to a stubborn student. Obi-Wan looked at Sindralig, and then they both looked towards Jedi Knight Siri Junda, who was hacking at the twitching body of an officer. And irresponsible, he added, his bitterness edging into resentment as he clipped his saber to his belt and strode towards the knight, gently.
Yeah, that's bloodlust. Now the better question, is it just dark side or corn side? Yeah, the answer is not good either way. Granted, I don't think there are chaos gods here, but who knows? Maybe something little chaotic came with them. That would be absolutely terrible because this is an untapped quarter of, I guess, the Imperium. Yeah, I guess it is. The Force is basically the Imperium here. They're very similar. And a parasite entering that would have a lot of leeway.
But insistently pulling her away from the corpse and bringing her gradually back to center. Obi-Wan agreed with the sentiment, though he was not sure he could agree with the idea that this should not have been done. This was only going so smoothly because they were not facing the same forces they had faced during the invasion of Axum.
Yep.
When they had faced armies of the Adeptus Astartes, of Space Marines. The tens of Jedi that had been present had died so quickly the retreat had not even been sounded, with few commanders having been decisive enough to survive,
there was only a handful.
And none of them unscathed. Had they been here, waiting for them, then this would have been a different battle entirely. Obi-Wan sighed heavily.
Wait, he talked about the Battle of Axum. I thought that's the planet they're on right now.
Survived. The retreat had not even Marines. That faced army forces they had faced during the invasion of Axum.
Yeah? No, I'm on the right one here. Maybe I'm getting the planet wrong. That's probably it. Yeah, I'm probably just forgetting something because it's a lot easier to believe that I got that wrong.
Space Marines. The tens of Jedi that had been present had died so quickly the retreat had not even been sounded.
Yeah, this is the... Okay, I guess Axum was the system they entered into? I really thought Axum was the planet they're on right now, though.
Had they been here, waiting for them, then this would have been a different battle entirely. Obi-Wan sighed heavily, shaking his head as he looked at the sentinel forms of the Jedi around him and the mounds of corpses at his feet. How could it be that even in victory, he could feel defeat closing around them still?
Because there's a lot more enemies somewhere else.
Cleared his thoughts. His mission now was to effect a rescue of Master Unduli, and he cast his eyes and senses about, trying to see if they were any closer to her. Her presence seemed the same as it had been before, but his eyes did find something laying on the ground.
Oh?
A familiar shape, but one that did not belong there.
Lightsaber?
A lightsaber.
Oh!
He went to it and collected it from the ground.
Yeah.
He did not recognize it, but he also knew it belonged to no one within his combat force. He hooked it to his belt and turned to the others. Master Luminara is close. Let's not lose our momentum, Master Kenobi said to them.
Now, is it going to be a Null or a Space Marine Librarian?
And troublesome grins greeted his call, and soon they were moving again, back into the halls. Obi-Wan let his hand trace along the new lightsaber, feeling a pull within it and following.
Oh.
Soon they were at a new door, which led into yet another domed place, similar to the others and lit by the stars, but much larger than any orrery they had seen thus far.
Oh.
And now they could all hear it. Not with the Force, but with their own ears.
Oh.
Master Luminara was screaming, her voice torn and wet, her agony slamming into all of them, as if passing into the room had been the same as passing beyond a buffer which had, till that point, smothered the truth of her cries. It was not a distress call. It was a shriek, continuous and horrid, pried from her lips by what could only be described as psychic torture.
Yep, that is definitely going to be a Space Marine Librarian, because I don't think a Null would have done that. As far as I know, most of the Nulls that could actually fight are more of the entire murder persuasion, and less of the torture. The Evisors, on the other hand, Sorry, I just had a horrible idea of an Evisor Null. That sounds terrifying. Someone in the chat's going to be like, yay, by the way, there was this one. And I'm just going to sit here going, lovely.
They honed in on her right away, in the very center of the cavernous domed room, writhing on the ground beneath the gaze of a massive single figure.
This is definitely a trap.
Spread out, ordered Master Malicos. Surround him. The knights swiftly obeyed, fanning out and wrapping around as they came in from all sides. The figure was large, 7 feet tall easily, and even taller if one accounted for the rise of his metallic hood. He held a staff in one hand, a glowing, maligned thing which keened in his grip, the sound reverberating within the Force like the long, stretched-out echoes of screams long past. The dark side reeked from him.
Accurate.
As they drew closer, they could also make out more about Luminara. Though at first it had seemed that she had merely collapsed at his feet, afflicted by unseen agony, it soon became all too clear that her arms and legs had been mercilessly crushed at each joint, leaving her physically helpless. The sight flushed Obi-Wan with rage. Rage he was forced to control, hold down. The man could smash Luminara under his foot at any moment, ending any chance to save her.
Yep. And that is exactly what I thought it was. This is definitely a trap. It might be a bit of a stretch to think he would know in advance that they could talk to each other telepathically, but I'm assuming when you encounter one psyker, you assume there's more, and pissing one off is usually a good way to draw out the rest. That's my logic. I'm going to stick to it. Or he's taking his time to have his fun. It's the Imperium. It could go both ways. Might be both.
No, he was no man, Obi-Wan quickly realized. He was a Space Marine, an Astartes, and whatever it was Anakin thought of them, it was clear as daylight to the Jedi present that this individual did.
Sorry, it's not actually about the story, but is that a Dark Angel Space Marine Librarian? Yeah, I think it is. Weird. Only the green around here. No, I think it is because of the symbol, but I could be very mistaken here. There's not enough actual cloth on here other than around here. But that could just be details. More importantly, I see the ships entering, and is that a webway gate? I think it is. Huh. So are they on an Eldar world? I really wish I knew more about the art from this source. It's really cool.
Did have access to the Force. Hey, step away from Master Unduli.
That ain't gonna happen.
Seer Junda. Slowly, carefully, or you'll get a look at all these lightsabers very close up.
Don't talk, just
Uvel.
fight.
Obi-Wan had not been able to tell that the Marine's eyes had been closed until he opened them, the metal hood which surrounded his head obscuring the warrior's face in shadow.
Oh.
But once his eyes did open, there was no mistaking it. A blue fire burned there, so brightly that at first the Jedi had mistaken it for another form of augmentation. But what smoke...
I mean, technically it is an augmentation. It's just a psychic one from sheer overwhelming, oh, I'm going to die, Uri.
Moldered around the rings of his eyes was not a manifestation of technology, but an omen of true power.
Yeah.
Finally.
Ooh.
The Space Marine rumbled.
Ooh.
Luminara suddenly
Love
went
the voice.
almost still, her chest rising and falling with ragged breaths, but no longer seized by agony, and the Jedi around them could sense the ability he had been maintaining fall away from her.
You need not fear for her safety.
She's already dead.
The warrior assured.
Oh yeah, she's dead.
She will still be screaming long after you're all naught but corpses.
Ah.
In fact, I swear to you all this. She will not die, not pass into oblivion, until every last Jedi on this ship has prepared the way for her first.
Brave
Dude.
words for a man who is surrounded and outnumbered.
You know what I said about death flags and saying things that are just going to get your ass kicked? Why do I have a feeling Obi-Wan's going to be the only survivor here? Because it's literally 47 red shirts. It's literally just 47 red shirts, basically, and Obi-Wan. Oh my! Oh. This is why explosives are a great thing. You don't stop. You just throw them. You don't have enough? Get more. Throw more. You can see how I play most games. It's literally just get all the explosives and go to town on it. I have a problem. It's what I do for every game, even in the games where that shouldn't be a case. I'm talking about Dragon Age Inquisition 2, where it was explosive runes, and I did that everywhere, and it was actually quite good. But more importantly, why would you stop to banter? Why are they stopping to banter? I get the Space Marine doing it because he's literally living it up right now. He's having fun. But the Jedi should know better. Granted, never mind. They should know better, but they don't. They don't. They're being reckless.
Master Luminara is a prize
Because they talked about
warrior of
how
our
it was
order, but defeating her
overkill.
does not mean you can defeat us all, said Master Malicos.
Oh, he's dead.
Surrender, and you shall be treated fairly. Fight, and you will be captured, and I cannot promise that you will be whole when we do it. He added, activating his second lightsaber, a humming green blade to pair with his main-handed blue blade.
Dude.
The Marine said nothing for a time, and the silence seemed loud in the interim.
He's laughing, isn't he?
Heavy on the ear, even past the humming of so many drawn sabers.
If the next words are some variation of, "Are you serious?" It's either that or he's going to start laughing because he realizes they are serious.
It was, Obi-Wan thought, as though the Marine was the silence. And even in this, his desire to drown them out was almost deafening, a bloodlust which ran off the Astartes like water running from a spring. And like water, it was filling the room up, subsuming the knights in an aura of menace that made the glow of their sabers seem dirtied and dull.
Do you really?
Asked the Marine out loud, clearly
Think.
to no one in particular.
The next word is think.
Think
Called it.
that I found your master alone.
Obi-Wan felt a cold, creeping dread slither into his guts and spine.
Oh, so the 47 with Obi-Wan were not the majority of the Jedi with them. It was just his party. That does explain a lot of the questions I had about the size when he said a majority of the Order decided to go in. Well, Palpatine's about to get some very awkward news. On the upside, hey, your plan about killing off the Jedi might not even be necessary anymore. It could have already happened. The downside, you're going to somehow wish they were still around. If that's a thing, I don't think this will happen. I do not think there'll ever be a moment where it's like, the Jedi are all dead. They were working for me. I needed them, but I wanted them dead. I just want that moment of Palpatine having that mixed feelings about the Jedi being dead, because it implies that his forces are diminished well beyond what he thought he needed. But also, I don't think it'll happen because it's just too much out of left field for where the narrative seems to be going at this moment. Oh, yeah.
Feeling the extra saber at his waist grow unexpectedly heavy. He knew it was not Luminara's lightsaber either. It had belonged to one of the knights that had been in her combat force. Knights which were not present. Or
They
so
did.
he had thought. As if in cruel response to the master's thoughts, the blue-clad warrior began to glow. Power billowed into the room
Grow?
through his form. like a closed door
Oh,
into
growing
a
power,
tranquil
probably.
home being suddenly thrown open by hurricane winds. An aura of liquid gold suffused the air around him, a halo
Gold?
of burning, writhing energy crowning the warrior in false sunlight, like a saint of some solar religion, or perhaps its god.
That is a very specific way to describe psychic power from the Imperium's perspective. I don't think he's an Imperial saint, but they're giving him all the descriptions that would make it sound like that. I'm confused. Fan knows his stuff about Star Wars, and obviously his stuff about 40K, so that is... I have almost no doubt he knows exactly what those kind of descriptions would evoke for anyone who knows what gold, saint, and god, those three words together in reference to a psyker would make you think. But they don't make sense in this context. Unless maybe he just chose the words because they sounded cool from someone else's perspective. But he'd have to be aware of how we thought about them. Maybe it's just an illusion he thought would be a really cool one as a representation of the Master of Mankind, even though he's not actually there, because we would get that idea. It's like, oh yeah, this is kind of what it sounds like, but it's not actually what it is. More just a reference for the reader's enjoyment more than anything else. Entirely possible.
Indeed, the warrior seemed to swell in size as well, armor and all, becoming not only golden and shining, but even more enormous than before.
Unless it was.
Steaming rays of light which pained the eye and burned the skin erupted from the Space Marine, and the room was lit more brightly than any other part of the Gothic vessel. Jedi hesitated, flinched, and recoiled, but no attack came, the Marine simply standing where he was.
Your fates are written into the stars, foolish witches.
Yeah, I guess from his standpoint, they would be witches. Also, on the one hand, I like that as he's being told to grow, his audio is getting louder, but at the same time, I don't like the fact that the audio isn't balanced as well. It's intentional, but at the same...
Said the man, aiming his staff up towards the clear dome above them, further illuminating his grisly handiwork.
They're all going to be dripping from the ceiling, aren't
Most did not see it at first, too distracted, too engaged with the warrior before them, but Obi-Wan saw right
Oh,
away.
no.
Plastered with great force and extreme heat into the clear ceiling above them were the smoldering, skeletal remains of the Jedi who had accompanied Master Luminara.
He
They stared,
burned them into the ceiling.
framed between constellations, empty or dead eyes gazing down upon them all, mouths agape and silent screams of warning, desperate but dead shouts to flee, to run, to escape with their lives.
Yep.
Now, witness the glory of the Emperor.
Dude.
Said the golden, godlike warrior. Take him! Yelled Malicos, throwing himself forward, his order at his side, Obi-Wan following as well.
Through me.
The Space Marine finished, raising his staff into the air and creating yet another blinding flash, just as the first sabers reached him.
Ooh.
With the breaking of thunder and the scream of lightning, battle was joined.
Dude. Don't cut, don't cut. You don't, no, 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 no. Okay, so we're going to do another cliffhanger. I swear to God, nothing has been resolved in hours of content yet, but it's just cliffhanger after cliffhanger after cliffhanger. And it's like, on the one hand, it doesn't make sense for them to end yet and have any type of resolution to move on to the next piece, because we're still getting all the pieces being laid out. But I mean, dear God, it's just... every scene has been a cliffhanger of some sort. The closest thing to a resolution was Ahsoka and Rex. And even then, it still ended on another cliffhanger. It's not bad writing. I personally don't like it just because I like having more resolutions between plot threads so you can move on, unless there's a larger segment and then you go further. And I guess, you know, this has been a larger segment altogether to move through, but I was waiting for this fight. And yes, I could just keep going and watch all of it. But also, it's a lot later than it is, and I really do need to get up in about 5 hours. Oh, tomorrow is going to be tough. I I did not realize the time. That's going to be really rough. I still need to edit the video. I'm not sleeping tonight. Oops. So yeah, I'm going to go do that. I did not realize the time. So if you haven't already, there's a link below to the original video. Hit it up. Already done, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.